is it possible to just spontaneously in a moment have a random experience? It just shifts your identity and you just feel like a winner and you just talk like a winner, act like a winner, and people start treating you like a winner? Yes. Does it happen quite frequently? Yeah, you could say that it does. The problem is, does it tend to be temporary or permanent? It tends to be temporary. Are there instances where it's permanent though? Yeah. And what's the difference between the two? The difference here is how do I give this as an example? I tend to kind of regret talking about unplugging after I give you a story about unplugging from validation. But I'm going to use it as a teaching to point to this question in particular. I'm not teaching how to do unplugging because I realized there are levels of stuff you need to integrate first. That's why we teach states and principles first. Things lead to unplugging naturally later on, right? So don't top-down copy what I'm saying to try to do unplugging. Disclaimer. Okay, so as I was having the whole unplugging from validation shit unfold back in 2013, what happened was I would talk to a girl and I would feel the nervousness, the anxiety, right? Because I stopped suppressing completely, right? At the time, I had really, really great results with women and before, but in more in a technical way kind of thing. So now I just let go of the suppressing. And, I've told this story like a million times, because I had this heartbreak and I couldn't focus on game and life, whatever. So the old things would come up and I would feel the anxiety. I would feel the doubt. I would feel the impulse to do the technique and like whatever. And I wouldn't do it. And I would just relax and just say whatever came up naturally. For those of you who have been practicing with the principles lately can see some similarities, right? So I would have no plan, nothing. I just had one main thing that I oriented myself towards, which was I will just approach whoever intimidates me the most because my idea is that will build more character. That was it, because I'm heartbroken and I'm in the club and I broke up with this girl in order to pursue a fucking pickup. So I may as well get something out of it. So I'm in here in the club with my fucking wingman and he's like, hey, let's go approach. And I'm like, bro, I'm about to start crying. Like I can't even do anything. I have to just meditate to suppress the tears, right? So it started as a very suppressive, like shadowy kind of thing. And he's like, all right, so can I help you? I'm like, just leave me alone tonight. Like, I'm just weird. Like, let me just go and do my thing. It's like, all right, whatever, bro. Right. Didn't say anything, but he clearly thought I was being a pussy. Right. Which Pierre at that time agreed with as well. So I remember like most of the approaches from that night, 12, 13 years later. And I remember almost no approaches of my life. It's crazy. It had such an impact on me. So I would approach. I remember the first two girls were two super hot girls who were standing in like kind of like VIP-ish type area, right? This is in Stockholm. This place was called White Room. White Room in Stockholm. Two super hot girls in kind of like VIP section. And I'm like, well, they kind of scare me a bit, especially if I wouldn't do any like pickup and I would just be there completely naked and raw. Cool. So I walked up and I'm like, hey, this is terrifying. But I just kind of wanted to say hi. They're like, oh, hi. And like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm heartbroken and, normally I do pick up and all this kind of shit. But, I would just start crying if I don't actively suppress what I'm feeling. So I just have to like focus on my internal state completely. Da, da, da. So I just like started speaking with completely zero filter. And so the things would come up and I just had to relax. So as soon as I started to contract, I would just literally start crying in the club. It was nuts. And so I would have all of this positive feedback from it. Right? And this is not the same as just being honest, because I would let go the contraction at the same time. Right? So we get all of this positive feedback. And I would start to go into like a weird flow state. Like I was like depressed, but in flow at the same time. Wild experience. And this ended up to me having like the wildest night of my life at that point in my life, right? Where girls would just start to approach me. Like it was crazy. And my friend later on, because he was noticing what was happening, he's like, "What the fuck are you doing? What is happening?" I'm like I'm just like fucking being honest and they like me. I don't understand. Like this goes against everything I know. And he's like, "What the fuck?" So he just started to kind of like follow me around. And it was these other guys that were following. They're like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "I don't know." They're like, "Go talk to her then." I'm like, "All right, cool." Like every girl just fucking loved me. I'm like, "What the fuck is going on?" And they were like even more surprised than I was. It was nuts. That night produced a permanent identity shift. Because I would feel the old constructs come up and I would let the new feedback come in and be received by that part of me. Right? That's why it was an unplugging from validation. Right? And it stabilized more and more deeply. Now, contrast to I had nights before where I just fucking crushed it. Massive high state, like amazing, feeling like the shit. And I would have an afterglow and it would last for a while, but it would never like solidify because I would be on a high in terms of a state. That doesn't update the other underlying construct. It just produces a new construct. And sometimes I'm acting out of this, sometimes I'm acting out of that. And it became a game of like trying to just get into this as much of the time as possible. This is why salespeople sometimes feel like I'm just fucking hot right now, and then they kind of lose it and they go back into that ego state because they get state dependent. But that's why I also say like you can get to 8K a month for sure by just learning communication and state management. But then to get to the level where every day you're fucking crushing it, you gotta undo other constructs so that you speak with full conviction, certainty, curiosity, like all of these, you take charge and you listen, you do all the things the right way with no contraction in your consciousness at all, ever. Because those things that constrict your, let's say, charisma are just not there anymore. So that you could even crush it while being tired, sick, bored, like whatever. So these are the two ways that you can make things stick. One is pure state practice. So you get this temporary state, you learn to re-access it, and you basically kind of attain it. This is now an ego state of yours. So it's now permanent, it's just not always active. However, the same situation could possibly trigger an insecurity, so you got to undo that one. So you just remove the thing that could put the brakes on. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so I think the wording that resonated with me the most there was when you said that when the old part or state would arise, you let it be there, but you kind of had your focus on the new belief or the new identity that was surfacing, and you kind of let it flow into the other one, and so that it kind of accepts the new narrative. That does resonate. So I guess the removing the insecurity so that that it's not putting brakes on the state in the future. Does that kind of just look like acknowledging and sitting with that feeling, but then kind of, I guess, meditating on the new truth that you found until it kind of evens it
No,
out,
no,
or
no, 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 no. You misunderstand a little bit. You don't want to
sure.
overly focus on the new one. You actually want to like really let them both to just be equally present.
Hmm.
And then you allow truth to decide. Because we have this interesting phenomenon that truth actually kind of sets you free always, like basically every single time. And the truth of the matter is almost always that there is abundance, that you are good enough, that you are worthy, that people's words can't hurt you, their reactions don't actually matter, whether you win or you lose in this particular game or interaction with someone ultimately doesn't matter. And all of this stuff just makes all of the contraction, all of the friction, all of the uncomfortable sensations go away once they're stabilized. That leads to a natural flowing of positive states. But we don't want to focus too much on the positive states. It's more about undoing the reactivity.
And the reactivity here is referring to you're referring to the old state reactivating or the
Whatever activity you have that produces a contraction or friction
okay.
in your consciousness. Because that is ultimately what makes people have less confidence in you. So if you're doing sales, if there's friction internally, like a resistance to what is happening, people can notice when you kind of top downing another behavior. If you just have this like sixth sense for that kind of shit, and you lose trust and respect. And as a result, less sales. Even though you may have really high sales skill already,